Hello, everyone, and welcome to Telling Tales here on Twitch. We tell atmospheric stories together through the medium of tabletop role-playing games. On a Monday, which is when you've caught us, it is Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. I am your keeper for the evening. This is actually the first episode of a new arc. So we're running this Call of Cthulhu series as an anthology. So this is the very beginning of the second story. Aren't you all lucky to be here? So if you haven't watched the first story, don't worry too much. It may link later on, but for the time being, you're fine not having watched the previous one, and you've got plenty of time to go back and watch it. It's only 8 episodes, so if you haven't watched it yet, then feel free to go back and watch that on YouTube or in our Twitch VODs. This series is called Fingask. The previous one is called Darkwood.
Sorry, I couldn't get...
Thanks, Siri. That's that information. So there's a lot of things different if you've watched the previous series of Call of Cthulhu. One is my glasses. The second is the stream manager. So for this series, we've got John joining as a stream manager. Hi, John.
Are you sure you don't want Siri to be your stream manager?
Other voice assistants are available. Are you well, John?
I am quite well.
Good.
Are you well,
you.
Jonny?
Yeah, I'm all right. I wish that hadn't happened, but apart from that, I'm fine. Thank you for stream managing for us. So any images that you see appear on screen will be from John, and he also might give us some quick rules clarifications in the chat and that kind of thing if we require them, so that I can just keep telling the story with nothing but the assistance of my phone. Thanks, John.
Bye, Jonny.
Bye. So if you are watching this on Twitch, there will be links below to our YouTube, where all the VODs are uploaded afterwards. If you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link below to our Twitch where you can watch these live as they happen and join in and send us messages about what you want to happen. And then I might only listen to them if they're better than what I had planned in the first place. There are also links to our Discord, which you can join for free and come and chat to us. There is also a link to our Patreon, where you can subscribe to give us some money to help us continue doing what we do if you enjoy what we're doing. And part of the reward of that is that you get access to bits of the Discord that the standard free entry doesn't get you. So you get sort of behind the scenes info and that kind of thing from us. And there are also links to all our social media below. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And that is it. Other things that we do on the channel, on a Tuesday night, we have Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. On a Wednesday night, we have Simba Room, which is a free league dark fantasy role-playing game. On the first Saturday of every month, we have a different one-shot adventure, bit of a longer session, normally about 5 or 6 hours, I think. So far we've done Alien, Troika, Morkborg, and Fiasco. The next one is June the 5th. And that is going to be The Expanse, based on the Expanse books, and you may have seen them as a TV show also. Also, excitingly, bi-weekly, we are doing a stream on the Free League channel doing Simba Room on their Twitch channel. And that story is called Fetters of Stone, and this Sunday is, I think, the second episode. So that's every 2 weeks. Now that's out of the way, let's dive in to the second story of cosmic horror. So, Fingask Castle stands just outside the village of Rate in Perthshire, about 9 miles away from Perth. This castle has been owned by one family for hundreds of years. until the late 19th century, when it passed into the hands of Sir John Stewart, a well-known whiskey distiller. Sir John Stewart. So quite a wealthy man, as you can probably tell by his home. And he sent out a number of invites to an event at Fingask Castle. So the characters each received a copy of this invite. So, dear whoever, you are cordially invited to the house of Sir John Stewart on the evening of Friday, the 7th of December. This is 1923. The reason for the visit is to remain a pleasant surprise for all, but let it at least be said that there will be great opportunity for those who attend, and a feeling of great remorse in future for those who are absent, should they ever become aware of what they have let slip through their fingers. Please arrive at the address below no later than 6 p.m. Dinner and accommodation will be provided. Your arrival is eagerly awaited. From the desk of Sir John Stewart. So, there is a hall in the castle, which is filled with tables in a U shape, which has a large stone floor, mostly covered by a large rug. Candles are lit on the table, as well as gas lamps on the walls. All the crockery and cutlery is set out, and it's all very fine. So, stood near the door is a man in a suit with a balding head. Looks to be in his 60s. And he has previously announced the entry of some guests. There are already some guests in the room. And he then begins to announce our characters. So, the door opens, and the man at the top of his lungs shouts, "Mr. Albert Moore." And in walks Albert Moore.
It's not
Hi,
me
Sam.
playing this character. Hello.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
So yeah, I'm good. I'm playing Albert Moore, not John. Me. I'm playing Albert Moore. Yes. So he is a rather large and imposing older gentleman in his early 60s as well. He's broad of shoulder and broad of chest, and kind of has a big smiling face, always with a cigar in his mouth. He kind of has great big bushy mutton chops, losing his hair. His hair's receding slightly, kind of blacky grey hair. And yes, he's probably wearing some rather fine evening wear, I would say. Something similar to that. You know, I think he's quite a casual man, but he's very well dressed. He doesn't have a shotgun over his shoulder like he does in the picture now, though. I think that might be a little bit much. So he does definitely still have kind of his belt on, which will probably have his at least his hunting knife on it, because he kind of carries that everywhere, you
know. Those who might be just arriving at this castle see a rather lavish horse and cart carriage, pulling away to round the back of the castle, which Albert has arrived in. So upon entry to the room, you see, as I've previously described, and you also see 4 other people in the room. So you see a man who looks actually not dissimilar to Albert. He's slightly overweight, balding, in his 40s. And you probably actually recognize him. He's a local landowner. And his name is Robert Brown. I'll leave it up to you whether you think Albert's bumped into him before. There's no reason he wouldn't have done. Okay. And he's with his wife, who's in her 30s, and she turns to look as you come in the room, and she's got very intelligent eyes, You think that she's probably sort of head and shoulders above her husband in terms of intelligence. And then you see a man that you don't recognize, who looks to be probably late 20s, brown hair and slim. And where is Albert from? Is he from this
north of here, but not too far north, the other side of the Cairngorms, but he would travel the area. So
okay, he might not necessarily know this woman, but she's in probably her late 40s, he thinks, and very well dressed. So that's everything that's kind of going on in the room at the moment.
Okay, I know we mentioned that I might have kind of encountered the man who invited us all here in passing. So he might be in here. I don't recognize him anyway, but I don't immediately go, "Oh yeah, that's him." Seeing
no,
somewhere. Yeah,
no.
Exactly. Okay. In that case, my first kind of action would be to confidently and happily stroll over to the landowner that I have already forgotten the name of and wave at him.
Yeah. Do you think you would know him?
Yeah,
at least to say hello to. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Maybe we've been shooting at some point because Albert's definitely the sort of man who kind of goes around to say hi to people, even if he's potentially not invited. So.
In that case, he'll say, Albert, this is I don't believe you've met my wife Mary, and she sort of holds a hand out in a very sort of
I will take her hand and bow politely.
As you are doing that, the man at the door, again, you hear the door open, and at the top of his lungs, Miss Eliza Smith. And in comes Eliza Smith. Hi, Inga.
Hiya.
Tell us about Eliza.
Yeah, so walking in, she is probably a little taller than average, fairly slim build, and wearing slightly androgynous clothing, I guess. So kind of quite loose sort of trousers, quite a non-frilly kind of, shirt, blouse, again, kind of loose. From behind you, maybe, or from a distance, you wouldn't particularly think she was an especially feminine sort of figure. She's got long brown hair, but it's tied back into quite a practical bun, just tucked away behind her. And she probably sort of walks in and sort of takes a sort of confident step in, takes a moment to just sort of get the lay of the land, see who's who, and confidently go in and sort of take the first seat that takes her fancy.
Okay. So she's not going and saying hi to anybody?
I don't think she'll recognize anybody, so I think she'll sort of sit down and are the others sat down, or are they kind of milling about?
They're all kind of mingling around. Nobody's sat at a table.
Sit straight down then. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think, is there anyone who's sort of on their own? Are they, I guess, Albert and the other two are at least kind of together? Are the others just sort of on their own, or?
So Albert and those two are together. And actually the younger man and the other woman look to be having a conversation. From the way that the younger man is talking to the other woman, you would probably know that it looks slightly interview-esque. It doesn't look like a casual conversation. It looks a little more like it's not, they're not sat having an interview, but it's a bit more question and answer, one-sided rather than a casual conversation.
Are there sort of drinks at a table or anything like that?
There are, yes. Yeah.
I should maybe stride over, pick up a drink, and maybe just hang back and kind of interestedly observe, maybe try and see what that conversation's about, see which conversation takes her fancy the most.
Okay. So meanwhile, Albert, Robert and Mary, unless there's anything specific that you would want to be talking to them about, you're probably just having a casual conversation about shooting or...
I think that would come up pretty quickly, but I think the first thing I'd probably say is kind of, I'd look to Robert, but maybe either of them be like, so do you have any idea what's going on here, chap?
Honestly, I didn't really know. I just Well, I've had some conversations with Sir John about maybe investing in the distillery, kind of spreading my money around and trying to see what comes back. So maybe it's related to that. I mean, obviously
money.
you might.
Yeah, always money and whiskey, no doubt about it. But don't know if that's necessarily the reason we're all here. I mean, it sounded more mysterious than that, I must admit. Quite curious.
He, when you say, I'm not sure that's the reason that we could all be here, he kind of looks at Eliza and also the younger man who's stood talking to the other woman and goes,
Yeah. I think
you might not be wrong there.
Yeah.
If Eliza hears this, she might turn away as though she hasn't heard, but ever so slightly arch an eyebrow.
I don't think we're quiet men.
His wife kind of rolls her eyes as he says it as well, and that's kind of directed at Albert as well if he's involved in that kind of conversation. So the door opens and you hear the man at the top of his lungs, Mr. Edmund Carter. And in walks Edmund Carter. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Johnny.
Give us a bit of a rundown on Edmund.
Okay. So yes, Edmund is quite tall and thin with dark black hair, fairly neatly presented, but has an air of sort of a worn and a severe look, and has quite significant scarring or burns on the right side of his face.
So as Edmund comes in, he sees two reasonably defined groups, and then a younger woman stood on her own with a drink. Where do you think Edmund heads? There is room for Edmund to also go somewhere on his own with a drink if you would like to.
Well, I think Edmund will get a drink and then sort of start find a suitable space, do a bit of observation, and then get the lie of the land. See if I recognise anybody. I presume I don't.
I don't think you would. Where is Edmund based? It's England, isn't it?
Yes.
Probably not then. Would any of you three, do you think, have been paying particular attention to the general election results from the day before?
Absolutely.
For Scotland.
I'd have probably picked up a paper and had a read on the train. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to say Albert has no idea. He doesn't pay any attention to politics.
Okay.
He's Scottish.
Yeah, I think Eliza would have read up if there was anything notable happening to see if she could figure out any reason for the letter that she received. So I think she'd probably know about that.
Okay, in that case, you may recognise the quite nicely dressed woman who's talking to the man in his 20s. In fact, do you want to make a roll on... What would the relevant thing be for this?
Now we can celebrate first roll of the whole thing.
I know, yeah. And I can't decide what it is. Let's go for...
Would something like history work for the day before?
History, or like maybe the nearest thing is law to do with elections. Whichever of those is better, I'm fine with.
Definitely history. And I roll an 11, which definitely passes on my 55. So yeah.
Ticket.
In fact, actually, I'm going to retcon that and say it probably should have been library use. That would probably be the most sensible thing for what information you've picked out of a newspaper, wouldn't it?
11 out of my 50 score. So.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Give that a tick then. So next to it, there's a little tick box. That means that if we get to character improvement stage, you get to roll an improvement check basically to see if that skill goes up. Okay, in that case, you do recognize the woman who is talking to the man in his 20s as Catherine Stewart Murray, Her Grace the Duchess of Athol, who the day before has been elected as the local MP for Kinross and West Perthshire, which is where you are.
Mm-hmm. I think if she's already being interviewed, I might definitely be trying to listen in on that conversation. I don't think I should go up and interrupt that, but listen in at what intel somebody else is gathering. At the very least.
As you are trying to listen, you are interrupted by yet another bellow from the door. With the door opens and Mr. Samuel Thomas. And in walks Samuel Thomas. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Give us a rundown of Samuel.
Samuel, so he's certainly trying to, I'm just going to say this drawing is fantastic. He's certainly trying to dress as kind of as academically as possible. Like he wants people to know that he is, I guess coming from a university or something like that. Perhaps leaning into it a little bit too much. He's about 5'10" or so, quite underweight, but not conspicuously so from the outside. But dressed very formally, and he's in his early 40s, but he probably looks a little bit older than that.
Okay, so being the last so far to enter the room, Samuel sees two groups, one of three, one of two, and then two people kind of each standing alone separately with a drink.
Okay, so I don't think Samuel will recognize anyone in the room. Which group is closer to the entrance?
The group of three, so the two men and the woman.
Right as you're kind of looking at us, I'm kind of animatedly like motioning, loading a shotgun and discussing like the mechanics of it with Robert. And I imagine his wife is probably like half asleep already.
Okay, so
she's kind of looking around and tapping her foot a little bit impatiently. You can tell that she's well practiced in this kind of
So I think Samuel, he can see that he's not got a lot to add to that discussion, whatever that discussion is. So he's gonna get a drink, and then I think just kind of hang back a little bit for now.
Okay. So conversations that you kind of overhear. There's the quite loud conversation between Albert and Robert, which his wife occasionally puts little bits of conversation into. You also, in gaps between their talking, occasionally hear a low sigh emanating from her. And the conversation between the Duchess and the other man is much quieter. Inga, if you're trying to listen in, do you want to make a listen roll?
So that's a failure. So the score to beat is 70, and I got a 75 there.
Okay.
So
So
some luck points.
you can use some luck points, or you can push the roll if you want. So that means you get to make a re-roll, but I'm probably going to say that you have to kind of try and move a bit closer, and it might be a bit obvious that you're trying to listen.
Albert's such a loud man, isn't he?
If I'm still reasonably close to Albert and that lot, I might, if there's a particularly big sort of gun gesture or something, sort of maybe feign a little bit that like, oh gosh, that got a bit in my way, and use that as an excuse to maybe try and move a bit closer, and maybe I'll try pushing the roll.
Okay, great.
Try and make it look a little bit like that's not the reason I'm taking a couple of steps forward.
There's just excuse me, young lady, and then I go straight back to motioning aggressively.
So just roll again then, is it?
Yes, just roll again, yeah.
61, so that succeeds this time.
Okay, great. So yes, the ploy pays off and you manage to get a little closer. And you hear the Duchess basically saying, well, yes, obviously this is the first time that I've been elected as an MP, and it's incredibly exciting. As much as I don't necessarily believe that women should have the right to vote in a parliamentary election, it's good to be able to have a say from within the chamber. And then the man says, well, that's... yes, it's a very interesting take on that. Do you... what would you say to... it? I don't mean to be... rude, obviously, Duchess, but I mean, I've heard some women say that might make you a little, and she goes, hypocritical. I don't believe so. And they continue on much in this way of sort of. He's almost being antagonistic, but always using things that apparently other people have said. Whether or not they have or not, you're not sure. And occasionally you miss little snippets of things that you might be quite interested in hearing because Albert or Robert are either raising their voices or sort of booming laughter. And cutting off information that you kind of wish that you'd managed to get secondhand without having to be the one to pry for it. During these sort of few minutes, Samuel or Edmund doing anything else, or are you kind of each maintaining your distance and just observing? If you are, that's fine. Just
I probably after a couple of minutes of observing, probably I suspect I could tell that Eliza is maybe I wouldn't want to disturb her, so I think I'll perhaps wander over and greet this Samuel, who I don't know is Samuel yet, but good evening. Nice to meet you. I presume you're here the same reason as the rest of us. You received a letter?
Good evening. Yes, very, very interesting and curious. I'm quite excited to find out about this. Do you know any more about why we might be here?
I was just about to ask you. No, no idea at all, I'm afraid.
Well, we must all have something in common.
I'll look around the room and
Perhaps not.
Certainly a mixed crowd, I'd say.
Have you come far?
Not too far from Durham. I work there currently. So not a fairly quick journey. Not too bad. How about you?
Quite a lengthy one, yes. Came up from London, although I do travel quite a lot at the moment. So chance to read a book, catch up on the research.
Research. What do you do, mate? May I ask?
Well, I was a physicist for a long time.
Oh yes.
And I'm now moving into, I guess, trying to expand that field as much as I can. How about yourself?
Yes. What a coincidence! I'm also a physicist. Studied physics and mathematics. Currently working for an engineering and research firm. Studying technologies that came out of the war. Of course, it's very, very fascinating.
Well, there we are. Perhaps we're all men and women of science.
Mm.
Do you know anybody else here?
I'm afraid I don't know. No one springs out. I certainly, yes, I don't recall knowing of anybody here?
Well, certainly some interesting conversations are going on. Yeah, I'm not sure I know much about hunting, so I'm just gonna avoid that one.
I think maybe by now he's moved from talking about hunting to talking about like bagpipes maintenance. I'm not even sure if Robert wanted to be involved in this conversation by this point, but it's happening anyway.
Actually, about partway through this conversation of you kind of going into the intricacies of bagpipe maintenance, when you're halfway through a sentence, Robert kind of looks around and goes, "Where's Sir Stuart? I'm starving."
I think Albert's momentarily taken aback and then goes, yes, as a matter of fact, I am as well.
And then he just kind of starts talking to you again, having done that. And he's kind of, you see him occasionally looking around. And after a couple of minutes, he goes over to one of the tables and takes a roll, a bread roll from a plate that's on the table. Which is obviously meant for somebody's starter, but he just grabs that away.
I think I will kind of turn around and head back up to the man at the door, presuming he's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of go to him. Excuse me, good man. When's Sir Stuart arriving, may I ask? We've been here some time. I'm really rather curious to find out what's going on.
He bows his head a little and says, "Yes, I'm sorry, sir. You can see him kind of thinking about his wording, and says, I'm sure that Sir John Stuart will be along at his earliest opportunity."
Surely he would be available already if he had planned to meet us all. How could he be busy at a time like this?
I couldn't possibly say, sir, I'm afraid. You think that you think he basically has no idea where he is, and he's trying to not say that he would also have expected him to be here by now.
Okay, if that's genuinely what I think Albert gives kind of frown, and then, by the way, you can probably assume if Albert's talking, everyone can hear him, so everyone probably heard at least my side of that conversation. I kind of turn around with a frown on my face, kind of looking puzzled, and then walk back towards Robert.
Robert has what looks like a confusingly less nibbled roll than the last one that you saw him with, and there are more seats set than there are people in the room currently, and by more than one. So you could presume that there are at least a few more people who are expected to be appearing, and he's maybe decided that their bread rolls are now forfeit.
I like Robert. I think if Robert seems to be happily munching away, I might just quickly say to him, "Man at the door doesn't know anything. Seems like he doesn't even know where he is."
Have a mind to go bother the kitchen staff myself at this rate.
Might be a good idea. And then I think Albert's kind of wondering what other people are here for, so he's kind of going to wander almost randomly to the next person he sees.
If Eliza's sort of heard what she's going to hear, and she's heard some of this, and these two definitely seem a bit more comfortable and at ease in this sort of setting, maybe sort of assuming that they might have a little bit more info, so she might start heading that way and to sort of make an introduction.
I think Albert will nod very politely and be like, good evening, young lady. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Pleasure to make your acquaintance as well. It seems this is where the party is at, over in this corner.
Everyone says that to me for some reason. I can't say why. Big smoke of cigar. It's a big drink as well, probably, if there's drinks around. I don't suppose... Yes, I suspect everyone's going to say the same. You don't know anything much about what this letter's about, do you?
No, not at all. Eliza Smith, pleasure to meet you.
Albert Moore.
Pleasure. No, it's the first I'd heard of anything like this. So it's my first time in Scotland, actually.
First time in Scotland, invited all the way up for this. Very unusual group of people, I must say.
It's very exciting.
I think I look at like Ed. It was Edmund who had the scars on his face, right? I think my eyes linger slightly longer on Edmund. Maybe it's like the first time I've noticed when I say that. I'm like, unusual group of people. Sorry, go on.
Well, we certainly seem to be a mixed bunch, don't we?
We do indeed. We do indeed. I can't imagine what this is all about, to be honest. I mean, what was Robert's last name? Sorry, Johnny.
Brown.
Mr. Brown, I was talking to over there, thought it might be something to do with the investing in the whiskey industry, but I don't suppose it's not something I'm particularly aware of myself. I don't suppose it's anything you know much about.
I'm afraid not, no. If it's something to do with whiskey, I maybe intercepted the wrong invitation.
Yeah, well,
Eliza Smith involved in the whiskey industry, but definitely not me, I'm afraid.
It seems to me that this is some sort of mystery as well. I've never heard of a whiskey mystery.
Well, it sounds quite fun, don't you think?
It does indeed. It does indeed. I just wish the damn thing would get started.
Quite.
The younger man and the woman that Eliza knows to be the Duchess also move over to this sort of central group that is now forming, and the man starts going around everybody shaking hands. Thomas Walker, Edinburgh Evening News. Thomas Walker, Edinburgh Evening News. Mr. Brown, are you aware of why we've received an invite this evening? No, I wondered if it was to do with an investment in the whiskey industry, but I'm not sure. I've also asked my friend Mr. Moore here, and he goes, "Oh, Thomas Walker, Edinburgh Evening News." And he's not aware of anything either, are you, Albert?
Doesn't sound like any of us are from the sound of this. Very unusual. Can't see why so much mystery is needed. Other than, as Miss Smith pointed out, perhaps the fun of it.
Are you friends with Sir John Stewart yourself?
Myself? No. Barely knew the man, actually.
The other man says, no, not me. And the Duchess says, we know each other a little. But I'm afraid I can once again not give the answer that you want for your paper, Mr. Walker, and I have no idea why we're here.
I think I'll glance up at the man on the door and be like, there's going to be a riot in here soon if something else doesn't happen, I say.
Turning to the reporter, to Thomas Walker. Also, were you invited here to report on the events of this evening, or did you receive an invitation just like the rest of us?
I believe he kind of digs around in his pocket and pulls out the same thing that you've all received, basically, and says, I believe there's no mention of reporting in here, so I'm not sure. I presumed that might have been why I was invited, and it was just missed off the invitation.
Well,
So,
that looks just the same
know.
as mine, and I'll pull out my invitation.
Robert looks at them both and goes, and it's the same as mine. And he looks quite upset by that. Albert picks up if nobody else does.
I think Albert is chuckling.
His wife is once again rolling her eyes. And she turns to Eliza and says, Mary Brown, very nice to make your acquaintance.
Eliza Smith, pleasure to meet you as well.
She then kind of just turned back towards her husband and she doesn't play the doting wife in that she's not kind of laughing along to all of his slightly, harsh and offensive jokes that he's making about potentially other people in the room. But she is paying him attention at all times, even if she's disapproving.
Sort of spotting that they obviously seem to have come together. I think Eliza was maybe say, so did the two of you come together, or is one of your plus one?
To the Browns, are you asking that?
Yeah.
Mary turns and says, we were both named on the invite.
Lovely. It seems that you're the only duo here.
Yeah. Can I clarify that? Albert does have a wife, so it specifically didn't say his wife on the invite.
It didn't have her name on it, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Albert goes, interesting. Not that Betty would have wanted to come, but even so.
She says, yes, I don't... not knowing why we're here, I couldn't possibly make an assumption as to why that's the case. Some more time passes. In the interim, are Edmund and Samuel working their way towards the rest of the group, or are you staying as a separate sort of splinter group?
I feel like with the level of Albert's voice and the fact that there's obviously discussion sort of pertinent to what's happening because he's talking to the staff, I think Samuel might have been inclined to sort of edge towards at least close enough to the group to sort of be able to hear, but also encouraging Edmund to come along. Maybe not, yeah, just so that we can hear what's happening and maybe hoping to sort of nudge our way in at some point.
Okay. Is anybody going to engage Edmund and Samuel in conversation?
I was going to say, if they seem like they're kind of nearer a bit and aren't engaged in some intense physics conversation, Albert would probably have turned around and gone, "You two, I haven't said hello to you yet," and kind of just thrust his hand forward towards, I don't know, Edmund first.
Good evening. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Edmund Carter.
And you, Albert Moore. What was you? I dare say you exactly the same letter that we've all seen. No wonder.
Yes, I'll sort of brandish the sort of copy of the letter as well.
Exactly the same letter as even high and mighty Robert over there.
It is a
He
mysterious.
kind of snorts a bit and turns away.
Yes, I have no idea why I received one. I'll be interested to find out.
Honestly, I don't think many of us do. I mean, I don't have much reason to be here that I could think of other than being a curious man.
And I have a theory that we may all be involved in the sciences.
Was you missed Mr. Thomas, was it? Sorry?
Yes, good to meet you. Samuel Thomas.
Shake hands. The sciences? I'm not much of a scientist. What's that? What, are you both scientific men?
We are, but never mind. We thought there must be something in common between us all.
I'm terribly sorry to let you down. Unless it's something to do with the science of a gun or perhaps riding a horse. I can't say I'm very good at that.
Have you travelled far? Looking around the group.
I think if I'm right in front of you, I will first say not too far. Probably about 50 miles north from here. Not long, really. My carriage is out front. I travel these parts quite frequently myself anyway, so it was a nice journey.
The Duchess says, "Only from my election party, so this better be good."
Election?
She kind of realizes what she said and then kind of leans into it and goes, yes, I've just yesterday been elected the MP for Kinross in West Perthshire, so welcome to my constituency, everybody.
Oh, the elections! Congratulations.
Thank you.
I will raise my glass and then look at everyone else to do the same.
Yeah, she does. She says no more on it unless pressed.
Well, I've travelled up from London myself.
Long way to come.
Well, I suppose so, but I'm not long back from Russia, so rather short compared to that.
Wow, Russia. What were you doing over there? Dangerous
Soviet
place to
Union,
be at the moment.
The Soviet Union, I mean.
Yes.
Just back from reporting, actually, on recent affairs.
Oh. Yes, must be rather tumultuous.
Things have settled a little now, although I suppose you never know what's coming around the corner.
The Duchess is kind of eyeing you a little, and says, "I hope that you weren't swayed by any ideals while you were over there, Miss Smith."
It is important to report on facts, of course.
Yes, quite. She turns away from you a bit.
I'll just be like, oh, come now. There's nothing wrong with being interested in these things. Don't you think it's rather stuck up to not even go and have a look at other places and what's going on in them? Besides, we need to know what's going on while we're here, don't we? We're not all going to go to the Soviet Union to find out what these mad ice people are up to.
It is important to be informed, absolutely.
Yes, precisely. Not that I have been particularly informed on it, but maybe I'll read more about it after this.
Yes, I'll look out for your opinion pieces with interest, Miss Smith. She turns back to talking to her Edinburgh News friend. Some more time passes. So the latest that you arrived was 6:30, which was Samuel, and the time is currently about 8:15.
I've definitely started on those buns as well by now then.
I think there's a good chance that everybody has given in and had at least one bread bun by this point. A long day of travel for most people and not having been provided any food yet.
I think Albert's on like his 4th cigar by now.
Robert now for the 4th or 5th time is kind of looking around and saying, "Where is Sir John Stewart?" And the man at the door is looking increasingly sheepish with each sort of bellowed request for information. Until the door swings open and the man at the door kind of stands bolt upright and at the top of his lungs shouts, "Sir John Stewart!"
Ah, finally! My
He,
good man, you've been keeping us waiting some time.
He looks around and says, "Good evening. Thank you all for attending." He looks around a little more and says, "Those of you who have." He is, you think, probably in his mid to late 40s, but with like pure white hair, looking mildly unkempt. Quite eccentric looking. He's kind of, his eyes are kind of all around all the time. It doesn't look like he can particularly keep still. And he says, "I can see at a quick glance that each of the important facets are covered. We have science, we have journalism, we have investment, and of course, political power in the form of my good friend, Catherine Stewart Murray, Her Grace, the Duchess of Athol. And may I announce, newly elected MP for Kinross in West Perthshire." And he starts to clap his hands. And kind of looks around expecting everybody else to clap as well.
I'll be like, yes, we've already talked about all this and congratulated her. Now, why are we here?
A moment, please. Now, I know I say this every time, my dear, but I truly wish that you had chosen a different John Stewart to marry. And she chuckles, and he kind of stays smiling at her for a moment longer than is really comfortable.
I think Albert's actually tapping his foot audibly at this point.
And he begins walking into the room towards the top table, so sort of passing you slightly. And he's continuing to talk as he's walking and not really looking at anybody. And says, "I have something to share with you all, a very important discovery. I feel that those who did not choose to come this evening will be regretting it for some time, akin to if Isaac Newton was stood slightly to the left of the falling apple. Indeed, the impact caused by this discovery may be much greater to the world of science and the wider world than that apple could ever dream of. Now, I need to say a thank you to both John Rowett and George Smith for their help in this discovery. Unfortunately, neither could be with us this evening due to other commitments." He gets to the table at the head of the room and turns around and kind of leans backwards on the table and says, "I see the way some of you are looking at me. I know I'm a whiskey distiller, not a scientist, but this discovery isn't exactly what you'd call science. However, I'm sure you'll all agree it's incredibly interesting. He kind of looks around. How rude of me. You must all be famished. Unaided, of course, by my tardiness. Before business, let's have dinner. At the moment that he says the word dinner, a sort of team of kitchen staff burst through the doors at the top of the room, carrying multiple sort of platters of, it's literally the metal trays with the I can't remember the name of them, with the lids. So it's all very flash.
I will lean over to Robert, presumably near me, and just kind of whisper, not very quietly, wonder how they kept all that warm.
He takes a seat at the table. There's basically 5 seats set up on each of the 3 tables that are kind of in a U shape. So it's up to each of you where you sit. The Duchess goes to sit next to Sir John, and the Edinburgh Evening News journalist goes to sit next to her. So he's in the center at the top table, so there's 2 other seats next to him, and there are 2 completely empty tables at the time that you would be kind of going to sit somewhere. So if there's anybody specific that you'd each like to sit next to, or if you just want to grab a seat wherever, is up to you.
I don't really mind. I probably sit wherever.
Eliza will maybe sit maybe not on the side where the Duchess is. Maybe pick another seat a bit further away. Not like, polar opposite, but just, not right by there.
I think the Browns would probably grab you, Albert, and kind of expect you to be sitting with them.
Yeah.
Whether for conversation or status reasons.
If Mary's off on the edge of that, maybe Eliza would sit next to Mary.
Yeah.
If there's a seat next to Catherine, then I think Samuel would try and take that one. Although he's also trying to align himself with Edmund a little bit.
There's a seat at that table. So there's 5 seats, and basically Sir John has taken the middle seat, and then Catherine is sat next to him, and then the Edinburgh Evening News person there. So there are 2 other seats on this side where you could sit.
Okay, so I think Samuel will gesture towards Edmund, just as we've already been having a discussion, and kind of say, shall we take a seat to those 2 seats?
I guess we could. It's why not? Certainly.
As everybody sits, and Sir John kind of, anybody who's paying any attention to him, you see that he notices that a full bank of 5 seats is completely empty. And he looks a little bothered by that. So you can presume that there are 6 people that have been invited that didn't show up. You don't know what service they may have been providing as far as he was concerned, but a decent number of people haven't arrived. So initially, you have a soup for starter, and probably no bread roll to go with it. But the one particularly eagle-eyed member of the kitchen staff seems to spot this, and because it's rude to run in a dining hall, kind of shuffles very quickly back towards the kitchen and comes back out with a fresh lot of rolls and kind of replaces on the 9 taken seats. So you do then have a bread roll with your soup. So Samuel, I believe, is sat next to Sir John. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think Samuel will, before he's even started his food or his roll, say, so Sir John, were you expecting a larger party?
Yes. As you may be able to see, I invited another few people who unfortunately have not arrived. But as I said, all of my main requirements have been met for attendees, so a man has to be thankful for what he gets, I suppose.
Well, interesting that you brought 2 scientists when you claim this is not in the realm of science. I wonder, is your definition quite loose?
If you wanted to disprove religion, would you have a man of God try to do it? Or would you have a scientist try to do it?
Well, skepticism is at the heart of science, so perhaps we're in the right place.
I think we're all in the right place. He starts tucking into his soup. And you hear the journalist kind of trying to get some more information out of the Duchess, quite unsuccessfully most of the time. And the sound of spoons hitting bowls and probably Robert laughing with mouthfuls of soup and things like that. Has anybody got anything else specifically that they want to talk about over dinner?
I feel like most of Albert's conversation is probably quite inane. I don't think there's anything specific unless anyone brings something up with him.
I think Liza will probably try and just keep a bit more of an ear out, kind of having placed herself at this table, partly figuring that Albert and Robert would carry a lot of the conversation. So probably more in listening mode, although if Mary seems up for a bit more discussion, then put in a bit of the polite chit-chat along there as well.
You do catch her kind of eyeing the Duchess quite frequently. Whenever she's not concentrating on her food or Robert and Albert's conversation, she's kind of keeping an eye on Catherine.
I might sort of, or she might at some point this will say, you're from around this area as well, are you?
Yes, just the other side of Perth, actually.
Does that mean the Duchess here is your new elected representative?
Yes, it does.
Do you know her at all?
Only by reputation and expected voting patterns.
Not a woman of the people, then, is she?
She's not a woman of the women.
No, I
I have
gather.
a mind to stand against her in the next election between you and I.
Oh, very interesting. Perhaps I'll have to cover that at some point.
If you were to cover it for me favourably, that would be much appreciated. Miss
Favourable
Smith?
news would be covered favourably, I'm sure.
I'm sure a young, intelligent woman such as yourself wants to be able to have a say in a democratic way as to their future.
Absolutely.
Then I'm afraid the Duchess is not the woman for you, Miss Smith.
No, I did overhear a little snippet along those lines earlier this evening, unfortunately.
Very, very strange, I have to say.
Well, strange as this dinner is, I suppose.
She laughs a little.
Yet to see what this is all about. Perhaps all will be revealed soon.
Yes, once Sir Stuart has finished inhaling his dinner, if you look over, he's literally sort of spooning the soup. Like it's quite disconcerting the way that he's eating. It's not even sort of funnily disgusting. It's a bit
Eldritch.
almost like you imagine somebody who hasn't eaten in days would be eating their food, but he didn't come across as somebody who was desperate for food upon entering the room. It's very strange.
The soup's good, but I'm not sure it's that good. Quite good.
That course finishes. The kitchen staff come out again, remove all of the bowls and everything, and return with a roast pheasant main course with all the trimmings, all very well cooked, delicious food. Sir John is knocking back the wine, changing to red at this point with his game. And he's becoming louder, not quite to the level of Albert and Robert, but he's becoming louder in his conversations.
I think I'll be conversing with Robert about how it's a lovely meal, pheasant, but it's just not the same if you haven't shot it yourself.
Again, his wife kind of just rolls her eyes. Yeah. And turns to Eliza and says, "If you can avoid marriage, Miss Smith, if you can make a career for yourself with your journalism, please do."
Eliza probably won't respond. Will just sort of non-committally shrug and shove a bit of pheasant in her mouth.
So that course ends and is taken away, and a cake is brought out as dessert and sliced and placed in front of everybody. Again, very, very good food. After that course, a tray of spirits is brought out and different things offered to different people. The majority of it obviously being whiskey that's available on there. Does everybody have a whiskey after dinner?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think so.
Yeah. Anybody who knows Sir John's whiskies, you will spot that one of the bottles is sort of the top end of what he makes. So anybody who knows would probably go for that one, even if you weren't sure if you'd like it. Apart from Albert, the others of you might not necessarily be able to afford to have a drink of that whiskey normally.
I think Albert, upon seeing the bottle that's being poured, will kind of, well, maybe once it's poured in his glass, will kind of wave the glass up towards him at the top table and just be like, "Oh, you're giving us the good stuff tonight, then."
He raises his glass and says, "You are guests in my home, here at my behest, and for this, only the best."
I will give a good sniff of the whiskey and be like, "It is mighty fine too."
Robert basically necks one and kind of holds his glass out to the person pouring them for another. And that the second one he kind of sips at a little more normally. So yeah, everybody's enjoyed a very nice meal and a very nice whiskey or two, a number of nice glasses of wine.
Is there like a nice fire in here with some comfier chairs around it that we might like retire to at this point, or is it still at the tables?
In this room, no, this is like a hall kind of room, so it's quite a big room. You imagine that there may be another room that you end up retiring to.
Okay, I think what Albert will probably, he's forward about everything, and Albert will probably say like, "Sister, my back's getting a little stiff in here. Do we have a retiring room and we might sit more comfortably with these drinks?"
Oh, of course. Although I thought that maybe we might go for a stroll around the grounds, a nice evening stroll.
Excellent idea, as long as I can bring my glass.
Of course, there's some lovely gas lamps along the walkways, and I can show you the grounds, and you can see the some of you this evening will be staying in the cottages, so I can point you to those. Your bags and belongings obviously are already there. And then upon our return from the grounds, I'll be able to show the rest of you to your rooms in the castle. And perhaps we'll discuss business this evening, but I'll be honest, the drink may have got the better of me, and I don't want to spoil the grand reveal by being intoxicated and making a fool of myself. I've already shown up late, so.
Well, it was a mighty fine meal. I think you've placated us some. Perhaps we'll wait a little longer to find out all about this mystery of yours.
Yes, I wouldn't like to share the details of the discovery and indeed opportunity without a clear mind. So, yes, let's go for a stroll around the grounds, and then perhaps we'll retire and re-adjourn in the morning. Does that sound amenable to you all?
Sounds very pleasant, yes.
Robert says, I'm not sure I can be doing with a walk, Sir John. I'll walk with you. I presume that Mary and I will be in the cottages. In which case, we'll walk with you to there, and then I think we'll retire at that point and see you in the morning. Says,
Whiskey's gone to your head that fast, eh?
Yes, perhaps the speed with which I took the first one was a mistake.
Jonny, during the meal was Sir John Stewart really discussing? Did he get into conversation with anybody at all, or was he really just focused on eating everything?
He was eating. He was having some general catch up with Catherine, asking how her husband was and congratulating her on the election again, and kind of friendly chat as opposed to anything full on. Unless if Samuel had anything else specific that he wanted to raise with him, or Edmund might have passed something on maybe to discuss with him. But other than that, he was just kind of having friendly chat with. He'd have had a chat with Samuel as well, just to obviously he's. It becomes obvious to you that he knows what you do through the conversation that you have. So he's kind of, just having a friendly chat with you, unless you raise anything specific.
I think Samuel was kind of intrigued about how he knows about him, but also the answer to his first question was so cagey that maybe he doesn't press it at the dinner.
Yeah. The kitchen staff all come in and clear the tables to basically nothing. They ask each of you if you would like anything else bringing before finally disappearing into the back room. Albert maybe request a top up on the whiskey maybe before heading out.
He considers asking to take the bottle, but thinks that's probably a bit much and just ask for a top up instead.
Does anybody else ask for anything specific from the kitchen staff before they disappear? Cool. So you will have come in your coats, and the man at the door took them all and basically hung them all up. So you can grab those on the way out. He actually, as you are heading to the door, he passes you each your correct coat.
What time of year is it, by the way, Jonny?
It's December.
Oh, so it's pretty cold.
Yeah. So you head out through the same door that you came in, so the front door. You see the tracks from your carriage leading off around the back of the building, and Sir John says, "Please follow me this way. We'll we'll head up to the cottages first, and then we can head around the rest of the grounds. I'll show you all around. So about 200 meters up the path are these sort of terraced cottages, and he says, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, this is where we leave you for the evening, I believe. Mr. Walker and Catherine, these are your cottages here, self-contained. You have a nice fire to keep you warm this evening. There is even a bath in each of the cottages for you, so hopefully it'll be a very comfortable stay. The rest of you, he turns around to you four and says, you'll be in the castle rooms. You don't have individual bathrooms, but there are a couple of separate bathrooms through the castle. And you do have individual bedrooms, though, so hopefully, again, very comfortable. Robert, Mary, good night, and we'll see you in the morning for breakfast. And Robert kind of slaps you on the back, Albert, and says, see you in the morning, Albert.
Hope you don't have too much of a headache.
And Mary looks at Eliza and gives a little smile before heading inside. And Sir John says, right, the real tour begins now. So, we have over here, he points past the cottages, and he says, this is Gian Tree Cottage over here. It's was a groundskeeper's cottage, which has since been turned into a potential rental property. Nobody there at the moment, but it is available. And over here, you can't see at the moment, but you'll see in the morning that's a tennis court. So if the weather holds, there is a chance we could play a small game of tennis tomorrow if anybody were so inclined.
Albert makes a small scoffing noise.
And he takes you on a path to the right and through some very tall trees. And he says, these, I am told, have been here for coming on 400 years, these trees. So I'm quite proud of them. Every time the wind blows, of course, I'm worried that they're going to blow over and crash into the cottages, but that hasn't yet happened. Strong roots here, I believe. Now, here, you kind of pass over you basically suddenly on a bridge that's about 30 feet above the ground. And you see a stream passing through underneath, heading north. And he says, we'll get to the source of this in a moment, but this is I like to stand here sometimes on an evening, and it's a nice view in either direction. To the north there, you have a few more acres of land, and to the south, well, my own loch, essentially. And he carries on walking, and you cross the bridge and head around. You pass a wood of oak trees on your left-hand side. You continue going down, and then you see, as you get nearer to it, quite a large loch, which then kind of continues up into the stream that you realize you crossed over earlier. And there is a slope down into this dipped area that you've been kind of along the top of. And there is a small house here. And he says, this is where some of the staff stay sometimes. I'm not sure there's a nicer place for staff to stay anywhere in Scotland. I try to make sure that they're well kept. And just over behind the house here, he kind of leads you around. It takes a minute or so to get past it. He says, this is the oldest thing on the property, as far as I'm aware. It's believed to be an Iron Age fort. And you see this kind of hillock with an opening in the front of it.
Have you been inside?
Oh, yes. When my nephews and nieces come to stay, sometimes they love playing in there, pretending there's ghosts and monsters and all sorts. Foolish, childish things, obviously. But sometimes when, the night draws in, one could be forgiven for believing these kinds of things exist, I suppose.
Samuel is going to, I guess, jump at that a little bit. He looks slightly uneasy, but he's just going to say, well, from my experience over the last few years, we have barely begun to explore the outer boundaries of science. And while you might call them stories, I receive thousands of these a year, and so we can't rule anything out.
I think Edmund will turn and look at Samuel at that.
Edmund, I'm sure you agree that as a scientist, we're here to be skeptical, but also to admit when we don't know something.
Certainly, yes. Acknowledging one's lack of knowledge is important. Yes. I thought you were in what field are you currently working in, sir?
Well, as discussed, I'm a physicist by education, but more recently I've been trying to apply my skills and the scientific method to areas that we haven't explored yet, and mostly following requests and communications from people from around the country. I have to remain skeptical, but you talk of ghosts, you talk of things of this ilk, and like I said, I receive so many letters and communications around this, and I think it needs to be explored, and I think it needs to be taken seriously until we can prove that we understand it.
I think Albert's been smiling this whole time and just in the background goes, "Ooh, ghost in the night."
And have you made any progress so far?
Did Samuel hear Albert?
Oh yeah, he definitely heard.
Just also, while this is happening, Sir John is continuing to talk about the history of the Iron Age fort and isn't really listening to anything else. He's sort of locked in a description and can't really break out of it. So conversations that are going on behind him, he's phased out. I think the Duchess is probably listening to him. The journalist, you're not really sure. He's not particularly looking in either direction. He's maybe trying to listen to both conversations at once.
Samuel was getting a bit defensive. He's going to say, well, you might laugh, but we have a shared experience. All of these people, there must be something behind this. I think it's important that we understand it, and I have the skills. Edmund, you will know the scientific method. We use it to evaluate a situation and try to discover what the cause is. So, yes, I am working on something. I've been working on a few things and hope to publish very soon.
Did anyone laugh when Albert made that joke?
Eliza definitely grew a little smile on her face, but wouldn't outright laughed.
What about Edmund?
I think I'm imagining you sort of stood behind Samuel, so I will have sort of caught your eye, but I'll have remained fairly expressionless. I think maybe a slight twist of a smile, but
Okay.
So I think Samuel will try and change the subject now, but also save some of his dignity by saying, "Well, there must be a reason why I've been asked here. I'm sure he's read my recent papers."
Can't say I've read any papers of yours, Samuel, but I certainly applaud investigating things.
Samuel very, very happy to have the olive branch there, and will smile, but not take that any further.
At this point, you hear in the streamy area next to you a massive splash.
By Jove, what was that?
Can we see any, or do any members of the party seem to be missing?
No.
Starts
Yeah, if you look around, all of the party is still there.
Yeah, a splash is in like, something falling into the water splash.
Yes.
Okay.
Something quite heavy.
I'm assuming John Stewart's also stopped his...
Just after the splash, he finishes what he was saying. He doesn't seem to have noticed it. So you hear like the big splash, and then if everybody else goes silent, you just hear... And it's believed to be about 2,500 years old.
So, John, what did you not hear that loud splash in the stream nearby?
No, Catherine, did you hear? And she goes, "Yes, of course I did. It was very loud."
I think I'd be heading over to try and find the source if it's nearby.
Yeah, I probably would follow.
So you head over, and there is quite a large rock kind of sticking out of the stream. And Sir John says, "Oh, yes, we do occasionally have quite sizable landslips from the as you look up past the stream. It is back up to the kind of raised area where you were before, so it seems that quite a large rock has kind of fallen out of this area and just dropped down and landed in the stream.
Probably ghosts. Oh, but just actually blank face now, just lights another cigar. His face like lights up in the darkness.
Sir John says, yes, of course, it will be ghosts. Having not heard any of the previous conversation, he probably kind of discharges that potentially negative moment with his complete lack of awareness.
Samuel's kind of opens his mouth to speak and then just goes.
Perhaps tomorrow we could. I'm unsure how long everybody is able to remain here. Obviously, you all have vocations and things to do, but there is the opportunity for us to head out on the loch tomorrow in a boat if any of you were so inclined.
Any good fishing?
Oh yes. Yes, I've caught some nice wee beasties in the loch there. Right, let's head back up the path, and you head back up a slight incline up to the raised area, and you see quite a large kind of walled octagon. Which is above head height. He doesn't mention as you walk past.
What's this here?
This is it's just the garden. It's walled off to keep foxes in the lake away. But there's no lighting in there, so unfortunately we won't be able to view that tonight. Maybe tomorrow. at his mention of lighting, you do kind of look around, and all the gas lamps that run along the pathways are very nice. They look relatively newly installed. You probably got bored of walking around with a gas lantern all the time at night when he wanted to go for a stroll.
Do you feel like a small part of this, given it's like 1927, is him showing off that he has outdoor gas lights installed all around his land?
Quite possibly, yeah. And he points to another bit and goes, "There's a well over there. This I'm very happy with. I've hired a new gardener relatively recently, and some lovely topiary work over here. You see some kind of nicely patterned tree cutouts and bushes, and you head back towards the castle."
I think I will take a moment to kind of just have a quick conversation with Samuel Thomas on the way back, and I'll be like, "Mr. Thomas, please don't mind my jesting. I can't resist a good joke. I don't really mean any serious offense by it."
Oh, don't worry at all. I'm sorry. As you can imagine, I have my fair share of detractors in the work that I'm doing, but at the same time, I do believe it's of use. But no problem at all.
Of course, can't say I know anything about the concept at all, but I suppose some proof would be very interesting.
You maybe had a time where you've felt like you've known something was about to happen, or where you've heard something and not been able to explain it. These are the kind of things I'm looking at. Although, if I did see a ghost, that would be a scoop.
I think, are you saying like, you know something was going to happen or something? I think Albert gets like surprisingly like somber and thoughtful look on his face and doesn't say anything more.
So he, as you get to the castle and he's about to head inside, he says, "Oh, Catherine, Mr. Walker, would you like us to take you to your cottages?" And Catherine kind of gives a little nod, and then he turns to each of you and says, "You're welcome to wait here, or we can head back up to the cottage and loop back around if you so choose. I'll just head back with Catherine and Thomas here."
I think Albert will hang around for a bit.
Yeah, so he just heads up towards the cottages, about 5 minutes, and he's gone up and come back.
What are we like by the main house now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
He says, Can I offer any of you a nightcap?"
I couldn't say no to a little more of that rather pleasant whiskey of yours.
It would certainly be appreciated. Yes, thank you.
Very good. We'll go to the drawing room. Mr. Moore, I have put your man up in the house that I said was for the staff. He should be very comfortable there.
Excellent. Thank you. I was going to ask after Willie. I'm sure he'll be happy enough.
So he heads in and leads you through the kind of hall that you were in, out a door at the back of that room, and you're in a kind of study area. And he has to bring through a couple of chairs from the kind of dining hall room. There's a couple of sort of smoking chairs, but not enough for everybody to sit in. So he brings a couple more chairs through, and offers everybody a cigarette and some whiskey.
Presumably doesn't offer me a cigarette, given I've already got a cigar in my mouth.
If you have a cigar literally in your mouth, then he won't know.
More than half the time I do, yeah.
He actually says, "Albert, I presume you don't need a cigarette."
No, not at all, not at all. Would you like to try one of these?
I could. That would be much appreciated.
I think you'll find it's rather more flavorful than those simple things. And he'll kind of gesture around to everyone.
Yeah, he definitely takes one if he's being offered one.
Mhm.
Anybody else is welcome to take a cigarette or a cigar.
These are like posh cigars, like, the equivalent of the whiskey I think you were talking about from earlier.
Samuel will just take a cigarette.
Eliza would take a cigar.
Yeah, I might try a cigar. See how that goes.
I
And
give a
the-
particularly happy nod to Eliza as she takes a cigar.
the whiskey that he brings out of the cabinet is a bottle of the same one as before. You can't imagine that he drinks anything less than his best one, because why would he? Probably. So yeah, he pours everybody a glass. The fire is already lit in here, and it's a very nice way to warm yourselves up after a cold walk, and a nice meal. So he says, now, obviously, I can't go giving you any more information now, bearing in mind the others are all also not here. So please don't try and lead me in that direction with the conversation. But I'm happy to discuss anything else that you would like to discuss. Mr. Moore, I believe that you enjoy shooting. Is that correct?
I do indeed. In fact, I brought a few of my secondary guns. If anyone else fancied joining me, figured maybe everyone wouldn't have their own.
Very good. The oak wood that we passed, I'm happy for you to go shooting in there tomorrow, if you so please. Just as I say, don't go firing anything near those tall trees, because I'm very proud of those. I don't want them damaging by a stray buckshot.
Don't worry, I'll be most careful. I've shot on many another person's land and never had a complaint. Well, not had many complaints yet.
Did they? He kind of grins a little and says, "Did they know you were there, Albert?"
Of course they did. They invited me.
Very good. Mr. Carter, I believe that you've had no small part in adapting some technologies that were created for the purpose of combat after the war. Is that correct?
I've tried to do my my part. Yes, to understand and further these discoveries and try to develop them further. Yes.
Very good. Very important work. If there's anything,
hopefully we don't need them for the use in combat is over. Hopefully we can find better uses for this technology.
Yes, although if there's anything that the war taught us is that it's important to be prepared for these eventualities as well.
That is right.
Yes. He kind of stares off a little.
I will probably do likewise.
Miss Smith, I believe that you've been over to Eastern Europe. Is that accurate?
It is, yes. I'm surprised you've heard of me at all, but yes, I've been out reporting on events in the Soviet Union.
Yes. How are things evolving over there?
Well, a little calmer than perhaps a year ago, although calm is certainly a very relative term, with a revolution, of course. Yes, well, I think things are always developing. It's hard to predict, I would say.
Good. And
Do you
Mr.
take
Thomas.
interest, sorry, in the events over in Eastern Europe?
As purveyor of a quite country-specific spirit, I feel I share a kinship with those in Eastern Europe. Only through that, and not ideologically, of course. Some very dangerous people over there, I believe. But yes, as a businessman, it's always interesting to think about how one might be able to break a product into a new area which is already so saturated with one particular type of product. But anyway, that's business for business sake and a conversation for another day, I think. Mr. Thomas, how goes your research?
So for Samuel, this is his opportunity to redeem himself in the eyes of his colleagues, perhaps. Very well, thank you for asking. Recently, I've been looking into something that is possibly something you all have some experience of or knowledge, and the idea that that the soul or the mind continues after this corporeal form that we have. Obviously, this is something that many people believe, but we have never really investigated reports of, particularly from those who have felt that they've been and then come back, or you can imagine in the war there was a lot of these kind of reports. So this is the principal area that I'm investigating at the moment, and it's certainly interesting.
Yes, I believe a lot of those in the war who are believed to have passed and then come back, the things that they've seen were, well, perhaps second only to the things that they'd actually seen in the war itself. Some of them sounded quite horrifying, and perhaps doesn't tie in with what the church might have you believe is the case when somebody passes on.
That's true, and there are surprising similarities across some of these cases, which I find very interesting. Edmund, I'm sure you agree that these kind of patterns are meaningful. Just gonna keep dropping you in it.
I've been close to death. I try not to think about it too much.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So what are you saying here? You're discussing the science of death or near death?
Both. How separate those two things are.
But
These
I'm
are all
assuming
questions we can't answer.
I'm assuming you're not talking about the death of the body, but the death of something else then.
Possibly. Certainly a lot of the reports seem to believe that the body and what moves on are not the same thing. I'm not ruling anything out at this point.
Most interesting.
Very interesting indeed.
Samuel sort of visibly relaxes a little bit.
There is a knock on the door of this room, and Sir John says, "Oh, please excuse me a moment. Help yourself to more whiskey and cigarettes, of course." And he goes and kind of slightly pulls open the door, and you hear a low voice say something to him. You can make a listen roll each if you want to try and hear what he's saying.
I think Albert's staring thoughtfully into the fire instead.
That's a success, 20 on my 70.
Okay. You can tick that again, Inga.
2 ticks of the first session. God.
I do not hear anything.
Okay. What was that? Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, I also failed.
Okay. Is Albert trying to listen, Sam?
Nah, he's staring thoughtfully into the fire.
Okay. Eliza, you hear a low voice say, Mr. Rowett on the phone for you, sir. And he says, oh, yes, thank you. And he turns around and says, please, excuse me a moment. As I said, please do help yourself to anything here. And he heads out of the room, closing the door behind him. And you hear him kind of stepping off across the stone floor.
As he leaves, I'll just sort of comment quietly, sort of to the room, not necessarily directed at anyone. Perhaps business will call this evening after all.
Business?
Mr. Rowett, I believe he mentioned one of his colleagues in whatever it is that he's got planned for us tomorrow. Seems to be calling him away just now.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Rowett was involved in the this creation, this
Mystery.
Well, he certainly thanked his colleagues, Mr. Rowett and is it
Mr. Smith. Is it George Smith?
Oh, George Smith.
Well remembered.
Curious.
Perhaps they're discussing the great reveal to us all tomorrow.
Perhaps. Although it sounds like it was supposed to be this evening.
Yes, I suppose. Well, either way, it seems like a pleasant enough place to be staying.
Yes, absolutely. If nothing else, had a very pleasant evening.
Quite curious too. Mr. Thomas, you said the experiences people had from near death. Many of them were the same. What sort of experiences were they?
Well, there are a few things that seem to come up. People talk about figures. Who knows if this is linked to what they read when they're growing up or what they hear in church. People talk about seeing a kind of tunnel. Again, I think my role here is to try to assess and look at these patterns, but it is remarkable to see how much is similar.
Perhaps.
Forgive me if I've misunderstood, but you spoke a little disparagingly, I think, of religion earlier this evening.
No, I myself am certainly a believer, but when it comes to trying to separate the cause and what is happening with what people would like to think is happening, it sometimes causes problems.
Quite.
Perhaps if all these people saw the same thing, they were destined for the same place.
I'd like to believe that.
I thought you were a man of skepticism, not belief.
I have my beliefs, but I try not to let them interfere with this process.
Looking around this room, are there any books or anything? Is it a fairly plain room?
It's quite a plain room, yeah. If there is a library, this is not it. It's basically like a cabinet along one wall with some sort of crystal glassware stuff, and then lower down is the cupboard which he got the whiskey out of, and if you were looking, you'd have seen there were other bottles of things in there as well. And then in the center a table and these couple of smoking chairs, and then your chairs are kind of circled around. There's the door that he went out of, which goes back into the dining hall area, and then there's another door on sort of the perpendicular wall to that one, which you don't know where that goes currently. So a couple of minutes pass. Is there anything else that you're discussing in his absence, particularly? No? Okay. The door comes open again, and he says, "Apologies. That was one of my colleagues asking me how this evening had gone, and well, neither of my colleagues actually are particularly happy about the fact that everything is delayed until tomorrow, but well, they don't seem to understand that it was unavoidable. So that is what it is, I suppose.
Some urgency to getting this across to us all, is there? Other than us being deathly curious, of course.
Well, only in so much as any one man only has so much time, but I wasn't aware that it was quite as urgent as it seems to be. You can all make me psychology rolls?
I actually upped my psychology a little bit. Not enough.
Yeah, so I passed that.
Everyone else fail.
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 Yeah. Samuel notices that he's doing his best to cover it up, but his mood has shifted since he's gone and taken this phone call. If you had to put a word on what he's trying to cover up, it would probably be fear. But he's sort of trying his best to carry on and just act like everything's fine. It's not mega noticeable, but it's sort of, he's got a little sort of shifty and edgy. He sits and pours himself another drink. Samuel notices that it's kind of hitting the edge of the jar slightly as he's pouring it. But again, he kind of notices that it's doing that and holds it harder against the glass so that it only kind of bangs on it a couple of times. And then looks almost as if he's going to neck it, and then kind of slows himself as he gets closer to drink it at a more reasonable pace for somebody who's not horribly afraid.
Yeah, so this definitely unsettles Samuel, because I think it's the first sign that this isn't just a fun jaunt away, but I think he's going to keep it to himself for now.
Okay. I was going to ask if Samuel is more obvious, but in that case, nothing is obviously wrong.
He relights his cigar as well, because he'd kind of put it out partway through to go do the thing.
As I see him relight the cigar, I'll just make idle conversation about how lovely the cigars are, aren't they?
Yes, quite. Yes. Very flavoursome, as you said, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Did I miss any riveting conversation while I was away? I'm sure with you four I must have done.
I will glance towards Mr. Thomas and kind of say, yes, Mr. Thomas was telling us more about some of his research.
Yes, very interesting. I've read a couple of your pieces recently, Mr. Thomas. Very, very interesting stuff.
Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear it.
He kind of gets to the bottom of his whiskey and finishes his cigar and says, well, don't know about the rest of you, but it's been a long day for me, I'm sure, traveling here, which, by the way, I appreciate wholeheartedly. Must have taken it out of you, and I'd be happy to show you to your rooms now, if that suits. So he gets up and opens the other door that you haven't been through yet, which leads you into a much more homely looking corridor with some stairs kind of heading back up on yourself, which he kind of goes around and leads you up.
I think as we're going, I kind of make commentary just, well, I was a bit jealous of the cottages the others got to stay in, but I must admit that was a lovely evening, so I'm rather glad I'm here in the end.
I'm very happy to hear that, Mr. Moore. I hope that your stay is as comfortable as you would hope. And he leads you up 2 flights of stairs, and then you get to a corridor with 2 doors off either side. And he says, "Right, your rooms are here. Mr. Thomas, first on the left. Mr. Carter, second on the left. Mr. Moore, second on the right, and Miss Smith, first on the right. Down where we've just been, the door that we passed on the first floor is one of the bathrooms, and the other is just back down this hallway here past the stairs. Do you need anything in the way of drinks for overnight? There'll be a glass in each of your rooms for you to get some water. Does anybody want some kind of tea or anything? Is everybody okay?
Water's fine, thank you.
I think Albert just nods and kind of strides to his room now.
Very good. I wish you all a pleasant night's sleep, and I'll just use this bathroom, and then I'll head off to bed myself. So if you each go into your rooms, they're all quite lavish. 4-poster beds, kind of fancy looking rugs on the floor. Yeah, very, very nice rooms. The cottages are probably quite cozy, but these are quite, upmarket. Albert looks at it and is quite happy at where he's staying. So the other 3 are probably, whoa. Yeah, very, very nice. Anybody who's paying any attention to anything that's not in their room, make me a listen roll.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there anything in the rooms like a basin or anything, or if we wanted to, wash our faces before we'd have to go down to the bathroom that he's gone to? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so there's one on the floor down as well if you wanted to go down a floor, but yeah.
I feel like Albert would have his head out the window just having a final smoke before bed, so he's probably kind of paying attention to other things in the quiet of the night.
Success 64 on 17.
Okay.
Fail. Not good listen.
Edmund and Samuel paying attention, or?
I think possibly, a little bit blown away by the room.
Yeah.
I guess I'd probably be standing by the window looking up at the stars, maybe, kind of wondering why I'm here.
Okay.
In a local sense, rather than... Yeah. So whether I'm the right side of the room or not, I don't know. But I'd be by the window.
Getting all philosophical about the world.
I think if you are kind of vaguely paying attention, you could make a listen roll for the...
Okay.
For the, yeah.
I do not make it.
Okay. So Eliza hears the bathroom door open, and some footsteps going down the stairs, and then down another set of stairs, and then a door kind of creaking open, and then down another set of stairs, and then you all are basically plunged into darkness as all of the gas lamps on the wall go out at the same time as you hear the sound of a kind of squeaking wheel. And then at this point, I think everybody is probably kind of listening to what's going on. Mm-hmm. And in the silence of the building and the night, you all hear the kind of muffled sound of somebody talking. And then the equally muffled, but you're pretty certain is a response to the original speaking, but it sounds very insectile. And I think we'll make a sanity check each.
What? Oh, he doesn't have a lot of sanity.
Is this like a sort of sound from all around, or is this the sort of, listening down in that direction that we heard?
It's it sounds like it's where those footsteps have just gone.
So I needed a 65 or under and rolled a 71, so that's a fail for me.
Okay.
I failed.
I
Okay.
passed.
Okay.
I passed 30 on 55.
Okay. So the passes will lose 1 sanity.
Ooh.
And the fails can lose 2, please. And I think that's a good point to leave it.
Albert's like wielding his knife in his room now, just like.
You don't have a gun to hand?
No, I don't think he brought the gun in. I think I was a bit uncouth. Probably wishes he'd had now.
There you go.
Well.
Episode 1 done and dusted. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
If anybody has any questions or comments, please put them in the chat and John can put them on screen for us to answer and discuss. And while they're being collated, promo stuff, Tuesday nights on the channel, Vampire the Masquerade. Wednesday nights, Simba Room. The first Saturday of every month is a different one-shot run and played by different people. So the next one is June the 5th, and it is going to be The Expanse, based on the books, and after that, the TV show of the same name. And every 2 Sundays, we do a Simba Room stream on the Free League Twitch. So this coming Sunday is the 2nd episode of that story. And also links to our YouTube, Discord, Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are all below. Or replace YouTube with Twitch if you're already watching this on YouTube. That's it. I can stop talking now. Yes, thank you, you 4. I've enjoyed that.
That was great.
That was great, yeah.
Thanks, Johnny.
You have to put gender pronouns up. So the gender pronouns are for the characters rather than the players. And we have had where the players are playing a character that is not the same gender as the player. I think that was all words in the correct order.
Yeah, you did good.
Yeah, thanks. So yes, the gender pronouns are for the character rather than the player. Matt's gone. How is Johnny's Tim Curry impersonation? I think that was in reference to somebody saying that it seemed like it was going to turn into Clue.
I'd love that. I love that film so much.
Yeah, yeah, I do as well. So my Tim Curry impersonation. Next time, I'll do it next time. I promise. I'll practice. Right. If you want to know how much effort goes into making these streams, today I was while working, I had a YouTube video on of Dundonian dialect and accent. So that I could pick up specific pronunciations.
I knew you were doing a different accent. I thought it was true as well. Yeah, I was like, "You're doing a softer one. You're doing a softer one than last time. It's not the Glaswegian one." Yeah.
The most interesting thing that I found is that pie and pay are swapped. So this is not role playing session related really. But if you were from Dundee, I'm gonna hopefully not massacre this in case anybody from Dundee does watch this. But if you were to say, I didn't pay for that pie, it would be, I didn't pay for that pie. And it's like, it's really interesting. It was a 14-minute video and I watched it twice. That's the amount of effort that goes into the stream. So sign up to the Patreon.
I'd just like to have a caveat for any future sessions in which we're also supposed to be playing characters with accents. Jonny does not represent us all. We're not all going to do that, okay?
No.
God, no.
Well, there's nothing like playing role-playing games though, for ending up wandering around your flat, like just make it like just talking to yourself in all these bizarre voices or accents and things, trying to pull things out. Sound like
Absolutely normal. Yeah.
Cool. Was there another part of that I just glossed over because I was talking about my Dundonian YouTube video?
Tim Curry.
Oh yeah, Tim Curry. Yeah, I'll practice that. I feel like I want to try his laugh now, but I'll just mess it up. And Clue, yeah. Cool. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks John for stream managing and also for the wonderful art which he managed to like create incredibly quickly and wonderfully. So thank you, John. And thanks to Steve and Inga for being new players in the Call of Cthulhu game, and to Matt and Sam for wanting to come back. I think
the others did want to come back, just to clarify when we were watching. They just couldn't. It's not like they had a horrible time and decided to leave.
And we'll hopefully see you all next week and maybe on Tuesday and Wednesday. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, there might not be Vampire in Simba Room as they may conclude this Tuesday and Wednesday. So don't be surprised if that happens. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Hopefully see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.